Thank you, Les Concola. Taoiseach, with fuel prices at an all-time high, many in urban areas like Dublin and its surrounds have turned to public transport as the costs attributed to owning a car have gone out of all ordinary earners' reach. This cost has multiplied considerably in rural communities, especially since the introduction of carbon tax. And owning and running a car for young people in particular is now becoming the same as owning your own home, a no-goer in rural communities. The expectations when carbon tax was forced on the people that we would get a better, warmer home scheme, and we did not. People still wait in the cold 2 years for retrofitting. We expected better grants for solar panels, and we didn't get that either, Taoiseach. So much so, Taoiseach, when I met West Cork hoteliers and supermarket owners recently, they told me that applying for a solar grant is so complicated they won't bother with it. Instead, they will pay out of their own pockets to install it. So what would the young and all people of West Cork expect to get from our carbon tax payments, seeing as it is us who pay the most? You'd expect is a proper public transport service. In 2.5 years of this government, Taoiseach, I can see no delivery of a transport service in West Cork. Connecting Ireland remains disconnecting Ireland in West Cork. There are proposals of new services, but this again is kicking the can down the road. And our young people, due to the NTA's disconnected mindset, are leaving public transport users at the roadside as services are not allowed to expand. Bus Air run a daily service in many communities, but this could be out at 7 in the morning and not back until 6 in the evening. And many of the Bus Air and great staff are annoyed that I don't give their services a mention. But management of Bus Air never speak to me about their plans of expansion in West Cork, if they have any at all. So nothing's moved in relation to transport in West Cork in decades until along comes West Cork Connect. This private company delivers an every 2-hourly service from Skibbereen, Clonakilty, Mandan to and from Cork daily, and Bantry, Dunmanway, Ballina, Cork and back. West Cork Connect have applied and been refused by the NTA for an every hour on the hour service for these routes to and from West Cork. Last Friday week, with students from college and everyday travellers, they carried 1,000 travellers on that day to and from West Cork, but had to leave people at the bus stops, as this bus operator will not overcrowd his buses, of course. Imagine West Cork Connect offering to do the state's work for them by providing an hourly service every hour on the hour, not looking for a brown cent from the state, and he's been refused a licence. To couple that, a service to and from Goleen was offered several times daily from the same private operator and was refused by the NTA. And why again? It was not going to cost the state a cent. All they want is a licence. Taoiseach, people, young and old in West Cork, are paying the most when it comes to carbon taxes and are getting the least return. Our young people deserve the same opportunities as those from Dublin, Kildare or Wicklow. The same public transport every hour on the hour, whether you come from Drimoleague, Dunmanway to Clonakilty, or routes from Baltimore to Skibbereen. These opportunities must be explored and immediately implemented. If not, it's an injustice to the great students from Skibbereen Community School who are here today, and every school throughout West Cork who have tried to support sustainability in their own community. Taoiseach, in the not so distant future, you aim to become Taoiseach of this country. Will you question the NTA and the Department of Transport's refusal to build a fair and proper transport service in West Cork to deliver a cleaner future for our young with public transport?
Thanks very much, Deputy. I think when it comes to carbon tax, we should acknowledge at the outset that roughly half of carbon tax is paid by businesses and the other half by individuals. And it does vary very much from individual to individual. It's not just a rural-urban thing. It does depend on how big your house is, how you heat it, whether you drive, what type of car you drive. And there are lots of things that people can do to reduce their carbon tax liability, whether they live in an urban area or a rural area. But I do acknowledge that the burden is going to fall greater on rural households than urban households because of the need to travel by car and the fact that houses generally are larger than they would be in urban areas. When it comes to solar panels, it's important to bear in mind the changes that have been made in the recent past. Only in the past few weeks, Minister Burke changed the planning rules, allowing you to put a solar panel on your roof in almost every part of the country without planning permission, and that's a big change. Minister Ryan announced changes to the solar panel grants for business, making it much easier for them to avail of that grant. And I would encourage businesses to do so. We have about 20 different schemes now available to businesses to give them advice on how to reduce their energy, how to move to renewables. I'd like to see more uptake of that. And because of the high cost of electricity and gas at the moment and oil, the return on investment from solar panels is pretty good now. You can make the money back within a few years, and therefore that makes it a very good investment. In relation to rural transport, I agree with a lot of what you had to say, Deputy. We do need to improve public transport in rural areas. There are new services all over the country at the moment. We have a budget to do more, and we have plans to do more. And I know Minister Ryan and Minister Naughton We'll take the opportunity in this House to expand on that. And also we need to invest in more electric vehicle charging points around the country in particular. You can get a really good range now from electric vehicle. It's much more viable than it would have been in the past. But we're not where we ought to be in terms of the charging infrastructure which we need around the country, and we need to really press ahead with that. And of course it is carbon tax receipts that we use to do exactly those types of things. I know you mentioned a specific private operator that didn't get a licence from the NTA. Wouldn't be appropriate for me to get into that. I don't know the answer to the question for a start. And secondly, the licences aren't issued by government. They're issued by NTA, which is an independent regulator. But I appreciate you have raised the question here, and I will ask my office to make some inquiries as to why that licence was refused. I'm sure there is a reason, but I don't honestly know what it was.
Thank you, Taoiseach, and thank you for your reply. Look, you do say about that half the carbon tax is coming from basically the fuel, but it is coming from rural Ireland. 90% of that has to be at that half, and it has to be, Minister. I mean, you mean to tell me so? Somebody coming in from Wicklow this morning into Dublin, or someone coming from Goleen into Cork, that there's no difference? There's a massive difference, it has to be. But look, we have a serious crisis in public transport in West Cork. It is astonishing the NTA for some reason refused an hour on the hour service with West Cork Connect, thus leaving adults and students on the roadside due to overcrowding. Minister Ryan's erratic decision making is damaging new routes being set up, as each month he announces 20%, or no, it could be next 50% of public transport. A positive announcement, you may say, but he's only applying this decrease to mainly city transport delivery users. I have worked very close with West Cork Connect to get a new route licence from Kinsale, Belgooly, Riverstick, Ballinhassig, a first-time bus service for some. This private bus operator, while having the bus and staff and the licence, is afraid to invest because Minister Ryan could wipe his business out when he announces the next decrease for some and not for all operators. Taoiseach, the people of West Cork have been left behind far, far too long when it comes to public transport. You have to stand up to Minister Ryan to make sure when all these positive decreases in transport for passengers are announced that all in rural and urban private and public bus users will benefit, and that public, mainly bus air and private transport users, will work together to deliver for the people of West Cork who remain disconnected in rural transport.
Thanks very much, Deputy. Just once again, Minister Ryan doesn't issue public transport licences. That's not his function. The NTA does that based on the law, based on regulations, based on certain criteria. I don't know why they refused that licence. From what you're telling me, there isn't an alternative service available. Sometimes they will. If there is an existing bus air and service available, you're telling me there's not. I'll certainly get my office to make inquiries with the NTA as to why the licence was refused.